Hello everyone, today I want to talk to you about how Trump relaxed restrictions, saying that China can continue to buy oil from Iran. That ineffective strike report, was it a leak of classified information or was it fabricated? The US deployed B-2 bombers and heavy bunker buster bombs to strike Iran's nuclear facilities. After the strike, Trump claimed that Iran's key nuclear facilities had been completely destroyed. This incident made his bravado reach a new level, with him boasting that no other country in the world could achieve such a strike. America totally won big. But Trump's bravado was quickly called out by the American media. On June 24, CNN cited 4 sources in an exclusive report, stating that according to the Defense Intelligence Agency under the U.S. Department of Defense, and based on the battle damage assessment conducted by U.S. Central Command after the airstrike, the U.S. military strike on Iran's 3 nuclear facilities did not destroy the core part of Iran's nuclear program. It may have only set Iran's nuclear program back by a few months. CNN reported that, according to people familiar with the assessment, Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium was not destroyed. One insider said, their centrifuges are basically intact. Therefore, the Defense Intelligence Agency's assessment is that the U.S. strike could at most delay Iran's nuclear program by a few months. The report has come under fierce criticism from the Trump administration. U.S. Middle East envoy Wyattkoff called for those who leaked the contents of the report to be held accountable, angrily denouncing it as an act of treason. On the same day, Wyattkoff told Fox News, needless to say, leaking this kind of information, no matter what it is, no matter where it comes from, is absolutely intolerable. This is an act of treason, and there must be an investigation to find out who is responsible and hold them accountable. He added that this matter must be thoroughly investigated, and any leaker, no matter who you are, is responsible and should be held accountable. Such actions could endanger lives in the future. Leaking information is completely unacceptable. He said he had read the U.S. intelligence community's and other countries' battle damage assessment reports, and he reiterated that this airstrike has deprived Iran of the ability to develop nuclear weapons. In fact, the New York Times also published a similar report on June 24, citing sources who said that American bombs sealed off 2 entrances to Iran's Fordow nuclear facility, but did not destroy its underground structures. The report also stated that before the attack, Iran had already moved most of its enriched uranium, so very little nuclear material was destroyed in the strike. In response to the reports from these 2 American media outlets, Trump posted angrily on his own social media platform, Truth Social, denouncing that fake news CNN and the failing New York Times were teaming up to try to downplay one of the most successful military strikes in history. He emphasized that Iran's nuclear facility had been completely destroyed. The New York Times and CNN are currently facing fierce criticism from the public. The White House also acknowledged the existence of the report on the morning of June 24, but firmly disagreed with its contents. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre posted on the social media platform X, angrily denouncing CNN for spreading fake news once again. She said that this so-called assessment report is completely wrong, and that although it was classified as top secret, an anonymous, low-level failure from the intelligence community tried to leak it to CNN. This so-called assessment report is clearly intended to belittle President Trump and smear the brave fighter pilots who flawlessly carried out the mission to destroy Iran's nuclear program. Everyone knows what happens when you drop 14 30,000-pound bombs directly on a target, right? It's total destruction. But on June 22, Iran declared that the attack was ineffective. Shamkhani, the political advisor to Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei, posted on social media in 5 languages, Chinese, Russian, English, Persian, and Hebrew, saying that although the United States bombed Iran's nuclear facilities, Iran's enriched uranium material is still there, and the game is not over yet. Iran's defense minister also stated that Iran will continue its enrichment activities, emphasizing that no one can tell Iran what to do. Let's do a quick summary here. The White House admitted that the assessment report claiming the attack was ineffective does exist, but insisted it disagrees with the content, saying the report must be mistaken. How could anyone say that CNN and the New York Times are publishing fake news? If leaking a genuine defense report is to be defined as treason, then it must be because the report revealed the truth about the serious failure of American weapons. The next question we should ask is, did the United States actually destroy Iran's nuclear facilities? There's an important detail related to this. After the US bombed Iran, CNN cited two sources familiar with the matter, revealing that before launching the attack, the US had conveyed the following message to Iran through secret channels. President Trump ordered an airstrike on Iran's nuclear facilities, but the scope of the strike would be limited, and there were no plans for further airstrikes in the future. Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi also confirmed in an interview with the New Abraham newspaper that before and after the US attack on Iranian targets, the US continuously conveyed information to Iran through various channels. Iran responded through mediators. Araghchi added that diplomatically, this kind of practice is very common, with the aim of avoiding misunderstandings, containing escalation, and clarifying each other's positions. This confirms that Trump gave advance notice to Iran before attacking, which was clearly an attempt to make a deal with Iran, reduce Iran's hostility, and prevent Iranian retaliation. It was also meant to pave the way for a ceasefire between Iran and Israel after the attack. But by notifying Iran in advance, the US essentially allowed Iran to move its enriched uranium, protect its nuclear facilities, and evacuate personnel from its bases, which meant Iran could minimize the damage from the US airstrikes. This was the only way to reduce Iran's hostility. If that's the case, how can anyone expect US bombing to actually destroy Iran's nuclear facilities? As a result, Iran started doing the same thing. After the US bombed the nuclear facilities, on the night of June 23, Iran launched a missile attack on the US Al Udeid airbase near Doha, the capital of Qatar. After the attack, Trump even admitted that Iran had notified him in advance about the strike, allowing the US to avoid casualties. He thanked Iran. It can be assumed that since both sides notified each other in advance, whether it was the US bombing Iran's nuclear facilities or Iran retaliating against the US military base, there would be no real consequences. Everyone is just putting on a show, it's all fake. The most interesting part is that Iran suddenly changed its tune afterward, claiming its nuclear facilities were severely damaged. On June 25, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Bakhaya said that their country's nuclear facilities were severely damaged in the US airstrike. He said, "Our nuclear facilities have suffered severe damage, that's for sure." Iran suddenly admitting defeat and saying its nuclear facilities were damaged is highly unusual. It's probably being forced to cooperate with Trump's narrative. However, Iran immediately got something in return. Trump promised to ease restrictions on Iran's oil exports. On June 24, Trump said that after Israel and Iran reached a ceasefire agreement, China could continue to buy Iranian oil. Trump posted on Truth Social, saying that China can now continue to buy oil from Iran, and he hopes they will also buy large amounts from the United States. After announcing the ceasefire, Trump's remarks about easing restrictions on China's purchase of Iranian oil became another bearish factor for international oil prices, causing prices to drop by nearly 6% immediately. Analysts believe that this move may signal that the US will return to a more lenient enforcement of sanctions against Iran, marking a major shift in Trump's policy. Back in February, he declared that he would reimpose a maximum pressure strategy on Iran, aiming to reduce Iran's oil exports to zero in order to crack down on its nuclear program and its funding of armed groups across the Middle East. Trump had previously imposed a series of sanctions on several Chinese so-called teapot refineries and port operators for purchasing Iranian oil. China is the world's largest buyer of Iranian oil and has long criticized the United States for its abuse of illegally unilateral sanctions against Iran. Former CIA official and current CEO of Rapidan Energy Group, Bob McNally, said that although Trump imposed sanctions on Chinese trading companies and port operators this year, it was more like brandishing a pistol, essentially applying minimal pressure rather than maximum pressure. Trump now allowing China to continue purchasing Iranian oil reflects a return to a more relaxed enforcement of US sanctions against Iran. McNally believes that Trump may not fully lift sanctions on Iran for the time being, and will base his decision on the outcome of the upcoming US-Iran nuclear negotiations, since these sanctions themselves serve as bargaining chips for the US, while Iran insists that any agreement must include the permanent removal of sanctions. Seeing what's happening in the world today reminds me of a joke I read in Reader's Digest in the US 50 years ago. The gist of it went something like this. Soviet leader Khrushchev was always giving speeches everywhere, and once he went to give a speech at a mental hospital. The head of the mental hospital had gathered all the patients in advance and instructed them to give Comrade Khrushchev a warm round of applause after his speech. After Khrushchev finished his speech during his visit, he indeed received a long and enthusiastic round of applause. Khrushchev was feeling very pleased with himself, but suddenly he noticed that there was one person who wasn't clapping. He flew into a rage and asked him, "Why aren't you clapping?" The person replied, "Because I'm cured of my madness." Actually, America really shouldn't be mocking others so casually, because without realizing it, they become the butt of that very joke. You could sum it up like this. First, Trump only cares about winning applause for himself, telling people that America has won, and he refuses to accept the fact that the airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities didn't achieve their intended results. Under America's direction, the wars in the Middle East have become a matter of saving face, but the casualties and loss of life have become the price that leaders like Trump are willing to pay just to maintain their image. Now Trump can happily claim that he brokered a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, and he can even go apply for the Nobel Peace Prize. Second, Iran is playing along with the US in this performance, but the whole country is demoralized and will only grow weaker in the future, because even if the US temporarily eases sanctions, it can reimpose them at any time. Third, regardless of whether the US agrees or not, China has always been the main buyer of Iranian oil,